Okay, perfect. So hello, everyone. I'm very happy to talk to you about a very interesting topic that has been emerging lately. I'm pretty sure you heard about electric aviation. It's a really nice topic and a very emerging one that's coming up lately in our industry. The recent development have progressed rapidly these past years. And of course, airports will be mainly impacted by this electric aviation. So I'm happy to present you the latest news about the industry and talk about all the impacts that airports may face in the future. So before talking about the presentation, I want to present myself very briefly. My name is Loup-Giang. Some of you may know me. I'm a ENAC 50. I also graduated from FIT in 2018. I did a master on airport management and development. And since then, I've been an aviation planner at WSP, and I'm based in San Diego, California. So, as I'm pretty sure you all know, our industry has adopted a long-term climate goal, which is to deliver net zero carbon emission by 2050. This will require an energy transition of our entire air transportation ecosystem, right? And the emergence of electric aviation will have a major role in this. And of course, airports will play a major role also. Their goal is to commit commit to have their operation become net zero. And when we talk about electric aviation, and we want to commit, and we're talking about airports committing to net zero, we need to think of the entire airport environment, starting from the land side to the air side. So in this presentation, I will talk mainly, of course, about electric aviation, but also how airports in general will have to facilitate this decarbonization by accommodating and enabling all this new mobility technology from the land side to the air side. So I want to give quick definition. I'm pretty sure you all know it, but always good to have common definition. So what is an electric aircraft? Well, it's pretty simple. Electric aircraft are just aircraft that have parts or all their propulsion system powered by electricity that are stored on batteries or that are generated from hydrogen through fuel cells. You also have configuration of kind of hybrid systems. And electric aviation, one of the main objectives is to enable a greener and quieter aviation, right? We are expecting also lower operating costs and making air mobility more accessible and socially acceptable. So usually when people think about electric aircraft, they think about eVTOL. But actually eVTOL is just it's not a small, but it's a part of a larger, broader concept. And as you can see, there is 3 performance capability that we can classify under electric aircraft. So the first one is VTOL, so vertical takeoff and landing, which is mainly helicopters. They could operate it mainly in dense urban environments. And the 2 other ones, so the first one is STOL. So they're typically transporting between 6 and 60 passenger aircraft, and they are suitable for commuter or regional missions. And the infrastructure on what they're operating will be what we call short runways, so runways less than 5,000 feet approximately. And the last one is CTOL, which are just conventional aircraft. So that's when I will talk about electric aircraft in this presentation. I'm thinking about these 3 categories of aircraft. Sorry. Okay, so yes, electric aircraft, like I said, it's a broad concept. As you can see on the screen, depending on the characteristic and the specificities of the different OEMs, that will have different payload and passengers, of course, and the range will change depending on the size of the aircraft. So you will have what we call eVTOL, small UAS, so unmanned aerial services. You have also all the GA and air taxis aircraft, and you can go larger, maybe in the future, regional aircraft, but also larger ones. So we talk about electric aircraft, we know it's coming, and the first generation of electric aircraft are right here. It should be certified in the next few years, 1 or 2 years, hopefully. And the first one that we will see in the market are the smaller ones, right? We are expecting also to have larger regional aircraft, and those aircraft, at least for now, as we know, that will be powered by hydrogen through fuel cells. And those will come a little bit later, so probably in the next 5-10 years. And the main challenges for when we talk about electrification is the large commercial aircraft, right? So the industry is mostly thinking about more hybrid electric technologies for those type of aircraft. And we're thinking that those larger aircraft will mainly emerge in 2040, approximately. So with electric aircraft, new markets will open. And you may have heard about advanced air mobility, which is a new transportation system that encompasses urban air mobility and regional air mobility that will enable new market segments for transportation of people, but also of goods. So as you can see on the screen, I identify kind of different main use cases and missions. The first one I was talking about, urban air mobility. So it's the transportation of people between or in urban dense areas. For those type of mission, we're thinking more about VTOL aircraft, so capable of transporting 1 to 5 passengers approximately with a range of 10 or 20 miles. For regional air mobility, we're talking about more on-demand regional transportation, and those will mainly be carried on by V or STOL aircraft. So they will have a little bit more passengers and larger range. But we need, when we talk also about air mobility, we need to think about air cargo and transportation of medical supply. And those can be either urban mobility or regional air mobility. And different type of aircraft size specification that will depend on the range and the payload. So what I want to say also is that with advanced air mobility and electric aircraft, we will see the emergence, smaller communities will mainly benefit from this. There will be huge opportunities for them with electric aviation, will open new markets for all the on-demand, which could be on-demand, but also scheduled transportation. So what will be the potential impacts on the aviation demand? Electric aviation has promised lower CapEx and OpEx to flight operators. And as I mentioned earlier, we will have the emergence of new markets or mobility. And hopefully it will be more accessible, and smaller communities, smaller airports will mainly benefit of electric aviation, at least at the beginning. And they could become local transportation hubs. If you think about air cargo as well, there is a huge opportunity there through electric aviation. But the novelty of electric aviation now, there is a lot of uncertainty And we have a lack of visibility also on the future demand, depending also on the local specificities. So as aviation planner and decision maker, it's not easy to plan right now. So I mentioned a little bit earlier about the different configuration that the industry is looking at. But I would talk mainly about two things, the batteries, technologies, and fuel cells. As you can see in the table, there is a lot of different configuration that the industry is looking on. There's also the hybrid configuration is something also that a lot of OEMs are thinking of. And when we talk about all these new configuration, we need also to think, how are we going to refuel these aircraft? That again, the industry is thinking of different solutions, and I listed the three main ones that will emerge in the future, and that are already thinking of. The first one, which will be the main one, is fixed airport units. So will be basically electric charger station, like we can see for electric vehicles. And for fuel cell will be hydrogen systems. The second solution is mobile airport units. So this time, all the aircraft will be charged through superchargers that will be on trucks or in trailers. And for fuel cells, it will be only tanks that will be transported through trucks. And the last one that some OEMs are considering, and that we need to think of also, is battery swapping or container swapping for hydrogen. So as an airport, all these technologies, you need to think of all these technologies because they will have different implications for them in terms of operational design and planning. So I'm going to go pretty quickly on the next 3 slides, but this is to show you basically how the charging will look like. What I like about this slide is that, yes, we're thinking, okay, we're going to input the electric charging stations at an airport, but you need to think about the whole system from the generation of the electricity, how you're going to bring it to the airports. That is something that people need to think of, airports will have to think of when they are implementing electric chargers. I will talk about more the power supply requirements, but that's something also that airports will have to think of because, yes, electric aviation will have to share all the resources between all existing users that are at airports. And at some point, depending on the level of traffic, the airports will have to think of backup solutions to increase the resiliency. So same thing for the 2 other solutions I was mentioning earlier, battery swapping or mobile chargers. The concepts are a little bit different, but still, the airports will have to plan and think about all this, how to bring basically the energy to the airports. And the concept is pretty similar if we're thinking about hydrogen system. Airports at some point may think about on-site generation also. And that's something that airports are mainly familiar with existing fuel, but with hydrogen, same thing, we need to think of how we're going to store, how we're going to transport all of this, and how to become more resilient as well. So talking about power supply requirements. Well, actually, the big dreams of OEMs right now is to provide an infrastructure that is capable of delivering a full charge in 5 minutes. And recent research has shown that if we want a full recharge in less than 30 minutes, that will require megawatt level charging, which is pretty huge, right? And electric aviation, especially at smaller airports, it would create a new paradigm. That's something completely new, especially at smaller airports that will face, and that's something that needs to be planned properly and way in advance in order to completely be operational. So as I mentioned earlier, electric aviation will be other electricity users that are accounted for at airports, right? And now, when we talk about megawatt level of charging, all the power supply and management become a critical element for airports and aviation system resiliency. And to do so, utilities master plan that consider local power generation that can help to address all these challenges, especially when we think about resiliency. So airports need to have a holistic approach of electrification and develop power supply resiliency. So there's different solutions that we can think of. If we think short-term wise, smart power management could be one of the early adopters. If you think of it, airports may want to distribute the charging solution, not to have a peak charging time. So that's something that airports may implement at the beginning. So try to distribute evenly during the days. And if we think longer solution, well, airports can develop a sustainable and large-scale supply chains. So we're thinking about on-site power generations and microgrid approaches, that could help addressing these challenges. Airports are already thinking of it. I can give you the example of SFO. They already have like solar panels on it. So with electric aviation, with all the supply requirements that will be required, that electric aviation will require, on-site generation is something that will help, especially if we think about energy resiliency. And also something, if we think about on-site airport power generation, it can also increase energy resiliency to the local community. In case of any power outage, for example, airports could be at least the power sources for essential facilities. So to conclude the slide, yes, on-airport energy generation will support not only the energy supply for electric aviation, but for the entire airports, will enable new revenue generation, and will increase the operational aspects. So I'm going to talk also about the different guidance that are already in place. So this year, it's been a quite interesting year. The first technical guidance documents related to electric aviation and all the implications that we can see at airports that have been released these past few months. The first one is ACRP Research Report 236. So ACRP is a research program in the US that is sponsored by the FAA. And this research report, it's a guidance document that will help airports and all the aviation practitioners to prepare the airports on how to integrate electric aircraft and what are all the implications of it. A second one that will be published probably soon, hopefully end of the year, is 243, which is more related to advanced air mobility. NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory here in the US, has published also a technical report on electrification of aircraft. What are the challenges, the potential impacts for airports? The industry by itself also are starting to put a lot of efforts on industry standardizations. I'm thinking of electric charger stations, for example. SAE International has started a lot of working group leading efforts regarding some standardizations. Talk about regulatory frameworks. So right now, the FAA has published also a draft engineering brief this year about vertiport design standards. And EASA, same thing, has released, I think it was on March as well, an interim guidance to help urban planners, aviation planners, and are kind of the first design standards regarding vertiports. But all this framework and policies, they do not contain any operational safety, ground operation, or any energy aspect. So that's something that needs to be taken into consideration in the next few years as well. So when we talk about electric aviation and we want to commit, and the industry want to commit fly net zero by 2050, we need to think electrification of everything, right? It's not only the, the electric aviation need to push forward and could be a nice way for airports to electrify all the operations. So it starts from the land side. You know that electric vehicles are emerging and already on the market. We talk also about automatic and connected vehicles, and all the infrastructure behind it will probably electric. So that's some of the aspects that airports need to think of. Passenger terminal as well. There's an emerging trends on electrify everything in it. To give you an example, heating system. That's something that a lot of airports are thinking to convert to electricity. And Earth side, we talk a lot about electric aircraft, but there's a lot of also operations that are already in place to electrify. I'm thinking about ground support equipment vehicles. A lot of airports are electrifying their fleets, but we need to think also conventional aircraft. A lot of the equipment is converting to electric, thinking of, for example, APU. So airport electrification is something very important, and basically the airports will transition to one single vector of energy. So another nice tool that I want to discuss that has been featured in the ACRP Research Report 236 is an assessment tool that can be used for utility planning, and that helps airport practitioners or airports to estimate the future electric demand growth that would be due to electric aircraft, but also, as I mentioned in the previous slide, electrification of everything. It's a simple spreadsheet that you can find online in the research report when you're downloading. And basically, as an airport practitioner or as an airport by itself, you could, based on the future electric demand, the future aircraft operation, but also, like I said, implements and landside transportation. Basically, the tool can help you identify and estimate the future growth of the airports. It can give you the total airport growth, but you can also specify which aspects you want. So you can estimate the electric growth only due to electric aviation, the airside by itself, but as well the passenger terminal landside transportation. And another nice output that the tool can give you is the number of charging stations. Okay, so to conclude my presentation, we know electric aviation is right here. It's coming. It's a huge opportunity for us to have a more affordable, greener, and quieter air mobility. And it is the right time for the aviation community to start addressing all the airport compatibility issues, right? And when we talk again about airport electrification, it's not about only electric aircraft. We need to think about all the ecosystem, starting from the land side to the terminal. And the standard of practices that we have right now, are mainly focused on the designs, but we need to they need to evolve and to take account for new energy vectors and to ensure that the operational safety efficiency is taken care of. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. And if you have any question, I will read it through the chats and we get to discuss about.
Thank you, Loup-Giang. The first question is, do you want to share your presentation with us?
Sure, of course, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. The webinar is registered, but okay. Someone have a question? Don't hesitate to open your microphone and say. Someone, Guy, you have a question.
I was sure you will ask me for a question, Estelle. Yes, perhaps a question. For example, we are just now in Switzerland, and in Switzerland, for the next winter, we will have cut of electricity. Okay, we speak from electric aircraft, electric everything in the airport, but we will have to face a cut of electricity this year for sure in Switzerland, and not like in France where you are OIV. Organisme d'importance vitale. We are not organisme d'importance vitale in Switzerland. And when you speak from charging aircraft and so on, everything electric, we can say we will face a huge problem. We will not have enough electricity this winter. Perhaps next winter we will have more, but yeah, it's a little bit difficult to be in phase with this electricity because we have not enough electricity, and we will have to reduce everything. We will have to cut down a lot of systems at the airport. We will ask people to reduce everything by 30%, not to come at the airport, to work at home and to use home electricity, etc., etc. And I cannot balance just now electric aircraft because of this loss of electricity for the next months, for example.
Yeah, I totally understand. And yes, that's something that's a main challenges, right? That the industry will have to face. And yes, I mean, electric aviation OEM, they think, yeah, we will have electric aircraft. It's nice, but there is a lot of implication of airports. And like you said, especially depending the local context, this huge amount of electricity that would be required. Well, you will not be able if you want to run the airport. So if we think about operational resiliency, yes, we have to think about smart power supply management. We will have to plan in advance on how we're going to bring the sources. And one of the solution maybe, and depends also, of course, of the local context, is on-site generation. Like I said, there's a lot of airports, at least here in I know more the United States context. They start to think about on-site generation resources because, like you said, if the local context, if you cannot bring the energy at the airports, how are you going to run the airports, basically? So, yeah, I totally understand, and that will be a main challenges of electric aviation. And that's something that needs to be planned way in advance. So when you think about planning and starting to accommodate electric aircraft as an airport, you need to engage directly with your utility provider to think all of these aspects, resiliency mainly.
Okay, thank you. Nicolas say very interesting. Congrats for the presentation. Nicolas, do you want to open your microphone and say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Lou, for the presentation, and thank you, ENAC alumni, for the webinar. It was really interesting. I'm not at all in the same field than Lou, so I don't have any question about it. I was discovering the topic. So thank you for sharing this information with us.
Oh, thank you, Nicolas.
Frank Stenou wants to say something. Frank, it's your turn. Frank. Or Romain and Gregory want to speak as well. Open your microphone and.
Okay, so good afternoon. This is Gregory. I'm from EASA. I had a question regarding the batteries. I think you mentioned the competition with other sectors for electrification at large, but for batteries and the components that enter into the batteries, I think would be in competition with many other sectors, including the transport, the road transport sector. So I'm wondering whether there was any study of whether there would be sufficient terres rares, I don't know how to say that in English, and other components that enter into the manufacture of batteries to cope with the global demand, not only for aviation, but also for other competing transportation modes.
Top of my head like this, I don't have any research. I cannot think of any research study regarding these aspects, but yeah, that's something also. Yeah, it's something that needs to be think of. But like top of my head, I don't think I've seen any research study here in the US regarding sharing the batteries components between in the competition between all the sectors.
Okay, thanks. It was very interesting, by the way, and thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Louis-François Romain, can you open your microphone?
So it's Romain. I have just a question to ENAC, in fact, more. Does anyone have feedback from the operation with the first electric aircraft in ENAC?
Lou, do you have the answer?
Not really. I'm based in the US for this one now. Fortunately, I cannot answer. I don't know if anyone maybe in the chat has.
Yes, yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. This is Frank Stenou speaking.
Yes.
You couldn't hear me a few minutes ago due to my headset stuff. I'm sorry. My question was about at the beginning of the presentation. I remember you classified, you had a table where you classified the hydrogen solution in the column of the electrical aircraft. Could you clarify that? Because hydrogen is not electricity. We need electricity to produce the hydrogen, but why is that? When it's all electric, yeah, technology all electric. We see here on the left side hydrogen.
Yeah. So when we talk about electric aviation, yes, we mainly think about electric battery also, but there's also an emerging trend of generate and powered all the propulsion system through gaseous or liquid hydrogen through fuel cells. So I know it's written all electric, but it should be all electric and hydrogen, I guess. But yeah, when we think about electric aircraft, the industry is thinking there's two main sources for power and generate the propulsion system. So.
Okay.
Louis, François, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I don't know if you could hear me.
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I'm from Airbus and work on the hydrogen aircraft. So I could answer on the previous question that in effect it's an electric propulsion even with hydrogen, and you have two storage solutions for electricity, two chemical storage in batteries or in hydrogen. Hydrogen is less efficient, but you could store much more energy in hydrogen state than in the batteries. And the question that I have is, I don't know if you already think about it, because you talk a lot about electric facilities, but for the hydrogen storage in the airports, do you think if you are going to store it in a liquid state or in gaseous state and have a condenser or anything like that inside?
So as of today, this is our, I mean, at least in the state, our discussion. I don't know if I mean, there's a lot of research ongoing and discussion about how we're going to store hydrogen, like you said, if it's liquid or gaseous. But I don't know if the trends are going to be liquid or gaseous. There's not a clear statement yet about these technical parts.
Okay, thank you.
Martin asked a question in the chat. Martin, can you open your microphone? It will be easier.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I was just wondering what kind of role the government can play in this this story. Would it be possible for them to provide some kind of guidelines or subsidies for local aerodromes? Because in local aerodromes, the installation of charging equipment is not going to be that quickly adopted, especially for just local fun flying.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I mean, for now, policy doesn't exist. So that's something that's the government and all the federal agency needs to think of, start to develop. And when you think also about installing all these chargers, we could see like, I mean, and I can talk about the US context, but for example, the conversion of ground support equipment, there's a lot of grant assurances that helps airport to convert their fleets. So we could see something happening also for electric chargers, for instance. And also something that could be mentioned is about airport revenues. A lot of airports, they have fuel farms and they generate revenues through that. That's something with electric chargers. I mean, with electric aviation, you will have a loss of it. So that's something also in the discussion that the industry is thinking of on how we're gonna compensate this loss of revenues and how airports can generate revenues through charging station, for instance. And again, to install this equipment, maybe it will be directly airlines that will have to install, I mean, that will install these chargers. But there's still a lot of uncertainty on how it's gonna work, but that could be an option. airports could decide to purchase these chargers and then have different market opportunities and different business model to operate these chargers and to create revenues. But as of today, I think that policies, governments need to create these policies. In the US, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they start a working group on advanced air mobility. So that's the kind of effort that the governments need to think of and start to implement as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Louis Shi, you want to ask a question?
Yes, thanks first of all for the presentation, Loup-Giang, and as from someone who doesn't work in specifically on the airport side, I was just wondering, with regards to the rollout of those technologies, is it based on a versatile growth or on the local demand of specifically manufactured aircraft? Or the development of such technologies will just simply be based on the production capability of the country where the airport is?
You mean the charging stations or the electric aircraft itself?
The charging stations, because I feel on my from what I can see is that it feels like a bit like a chicken and egg situation, where you wonder what comes first for the actual deployment of this, whether the manufacturers are waiting for the charging stations to be available or all the way around. So I was just confused about it.
Yeah, so some of the OEMs are also thinking of producing these chargers. So I think that at the beginning, at least, maybe, again, there's a lot of uncertainty on how it's going to work, but what we could see is similar as what we're seeing with Tesla. Tesla is also having their own electric chargers that are implemented a bit everywhere. And as a user, you have a subscription to go there. So that's something that may happen in the future. Some OEM will decide to have like a network of chargers, and basically that will create your network. And that's something else, but that's something also we may need to avoid, or at least we need to standardize all this charging station. We don't want like each OEM have its own charging station and can be only used by their own product. So that's something that's is in discussion. There's a lot of efforts regarding that. And like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty. Maybe some airports will have also their own charging stations to try to how can I say, to create opportunities to have business or new airlines coming up with electric aviation. So there's not one single trend, I would say. It's still a little bit uncertain for now.
Okay, thanks. Hopefully the NOTAMs won't get denser because of this.
Yeah. We have another question of Serge Alexandre. Do you want to open your microphone?
Hello, good morning. It's Serge Alexandre. Sorry for being late. I just have a question about this was a little bit curious because I have seen that in space they are using some electrical propeller. So I don't know if we can adapt a plasmic propeller in an aircraft turbojet, for example. Is there some research on this subject, or is it not possible?
I don't know if it's not possible. To be honest, I haven't seen any research regarding that aspects. So sorry, yeah.
You don't
cannot answer this question. Maybe someone in the chats know, but
yeah. I could make a start of an answer that the ion thruster is way too doesn't have a lot of power. The thrust is very, very low, but it's a very efficient engine for long time thrust in orbit because they don't need to have a big thrust. They could make the same amount of energy in a bigger time, and so they don't need very high thrust. But for electric engines, it's very, very low. I think there is a study by I don't know which American institute, but I think that there is a study to a very little airplane produced by ion energy.
It was the MIT. I've seen something about the MIT was making fly
Yes.
a small mock-up of aircraft, but
yes, but it's very, very, very low thrust, so couldn't be used in big aircraft, even
commercial aircraft. Okay,
yes.
Fine. Thank you.
Okay. Other question, perhaps?
Yes, I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
If you hear me.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for your presentation. I have got the same question asked before. I wanted to know if there is already some regulation about electric aircrafts. So if you can today go in electric aircraft and fly. And the same question for hydrogen, because it's quite new. So do you know if there's some new law or regulation coming?
Well, I can speak for the United States. For now, no, there's no specific law. Electric aircraft need to be certified first, and we're expecting to have the first flight next year or the next 2 years. But the regulation is still, the FAA is working on it right now. As I mentioned, the Senate and they started a working group for AAM, but specific regulation for electric aircrafts, as of today, no. The only standards policies that we have is regarding vertiport design. That's the only thing I can, the only policies that we have right now. But that's something that the FAA is working, EASA also, I suppose. But yeah.
If I may, EASA already published a number of special conditions for electric airplane, VTOLs, and we even certified, you showed a picture of the Pipistrel, which is an electric airplane, which was certified already a few years ago. So it has started, there are still ongoing work on licensing and ops aspects. But for design, we've already started to certify electrical airplanes.
Okay, quite interesting. Thank you so much.
Was a question on François. Do you want to open your microphone?
No, it's just a response to Serge.
Ah, okay.
to go further.
Thank you. Any other question? Loup-Giang, do you want to conclude or say something?
Oh, thank you for attending this presentation, this webinar. Hope to introduce like nice topic, nice discussion points, and it's very interesting that the industry is working on it. There's a lot of opportunities that will come up, and especially in the context of environmental aspects. That's the next big thing in our industry, I think. So thank you again for attending this. And if you, I will send you the presentation, Pastel,